We're going to make a BNC connector using the crimping method. First, I have to strip down my RG58 cable. RG58 is a commonly used cable in the Coast Guard for communication systems. It's got braided shielding and a copper stranded center conductor. So your job aid guide has the measurements, and you're going to remove the outer jacket very carefully with a knife, remembering to always cut away from yourself. It's easy to cut around the cable first and then cut along the cable so the outer jacket just peels right off. And now that we have that popped off, I'm going to flare down that braided shielding. As you can see, I cut into the shielding a little bit, that's why those strands fell off. We want to avoid that as much as possible. Now, using the measurement for my job aid guide, I'm going to trim some of the dielectric. Using my ruler, I'll mark where I need to trim with my knife. And then I'll grab my cable strippers. Carefully choosing the size, not to cut away any of the braided center conductor strands. Now that that dielectric is stripped off, I can place the pin right on the center conductor. And we want to make sure that the pin sits level with the dielectric. Using my crimper set to 18 gauge, I'll be able to crimp that pin straight onto that center conductor. And you want to be sure to squeeze all the way down. And now we can see that pin is securely on there. We can continue with the rest of our build. So we'll slide on the connector body, and you should hear a little click once it's all the way on. And when I press my finger on the top side of the connector body, I should see a little imprint in the center from the pin making contact with my skin. So now I'm going to take that copper braided shielding and fold it back upwards toward the head of the connector and slide on my ferrule. I can slide it on afterwards because this is an open-ended cable. If you were making this connector on a closed-end cable, you would want to slide that on beforehand. I slide it up to the top just to kind of mark where I need to start trimming this braided shielding. I don't want to trim too much because that's what gives the connector its strength. But I want to trim enough so that none's sticking out. Remember, we don't want any of that shielding to ever make contact with our center pin. Now I'll slide my ferrule up and grab my crimpers. And on the green crimpers in your drawer, you're going to use the bigger size. We're going to crimp this ferrule down. We want to make sure that it's making contact with the head of the connector and we don't leave a gap. You have to give it a good squeeze all the way down for the crimpers to release. Once we do that, we'll keep it lined up and slide it down just to make sure the entire ferrule is crimped. And now I should be able to give it a nice tug. It should not pull off. And that's our BNC connector.